Good morning, dear students. Before we go into the subject, let us discuss the early clinical exposure of today's topic. Construction of a dialysis fistula. Many patients throughout the world they require renal dialysis for kidney failure. The patient's blood is filtered and then cleaned by the dialysis machine. Everyone knows about it, about the dialysis, how it is done. Okay, so there are many patients in the world who require renal dialysis for kidney failure. So what is to be done in the renal dialysis? We take the patient's blood, it is filtered and cleaned by the dialysis machine. Okay, so blood therefore has to be taken from patients into the filtering device and then returned to them. So blood is taken from the patient into the filtering device, then it is returned to the patient itself. Now this process of dialysis occurs over many hours and requires considerable flow of at the rate of 250 to 500 ml per minute. So this is per minute, this process, it requires 250 to 500 ml of blood per minute. So this is the large volume of blood. To enable such large volumes of blood to be removed from the patient and returned to the body, so the blood is taken from the vessels that have a high flow. Okay, as there are no veins in the peripheral limbs, whether you take the upper limb or the lower limb, which have such high flow, so we need 250 to 500 ml of blood per minute. So for such large volumes of blood to be removed from the patient and returned back to the patient, so blood is taken from the vessels which have got high flow, but no veins in the limbs have such high flow. So a surgical procedure is necessary to create such system. In most patients, the radial artery, remember the radial artery, it is a branch of the brachial artery. It is anastomosed, nothing but it is joined to the cephalic vein, okay, which is a vein in the upper limb, the cephalic vein at the wrist. Or brachial artery is anastomosed to the cephalic vein at the elbow. Some surgeons place graft between these vessels, the arterial graft between these vessels. So after 6 weeks, the veins increase in size in response to their arterial flow and are capable of direct cannulation or dialysis. Okay, so this is how we construct a dialysis fistula between artery and a vein. Usually it could be the radial artery, cephalic vein at the wrist, or brachial artery is anastomosed to the cephalic vein at elbow. Okay, these are the two things you have to remember. So in this picture you can make out the digital subtraction angiogram of forearm demonstrating a surgically created radiocephalic fistula, we say, between radial artery and cephalic vein, that is radiocephalic fistula. So this is radial artery and this is the draining vein, that is cephalic vein. Between these two a communication is created. This is called fistula, communication between the artery and vein, here radiocephalic fistula we say, right? This is anterior-posterior view and this is the lateral view, where you can see the radial artery and the draining vein, that is cephalic vein, the communication is created, that is known as the radiocephalic fistula. So this enables the direct cannulation or the dialysis. Okay, so with this early clinical exposure, let us move on to our topic. So the topic of today's lecture is cubital fossa. The cubital fossa, competence based undergraduate curriculum. The code, competency code is 11.5, 11.3 and 11.6. The questions being asked in the exam: identify and describe the boundaries and contents of cubital fossa. Number 2, describe the anatomical basis of venipuncture of cubital veins. Number 3, describe anastomosis around elbow joint. So this topic is very important from examination point of view. The cubital fossa. So dear students, let us understand the cubital fossa. Cubital fossa, it is a triangular space in front of the elbow. Okay, cubitus means elbow, so it is also known as antecubital fossa or the cubital fossa, one and the same. This space is filled with variable amount of fat. The base of the triangle, it is directed upwards. As you can see in this picture, the base, it is directed upwards and the apex is pointed downwards. So this is this imaginary line you can see here. This is the base of the cubital fossa and the apex is pointed downwards. You have to note that the cubital fossa is homologous with the popliteal fossa of lower limb. That means in the lower limb, behind the knee, there is a fossa which is known as the popliteal fossa. Okay. Let us discuss about the boundaries, roof and floor of the cubital fossa. It is a triangular hollow space situated in front of the elbow. It has roof and the floor. Boundaries are medially, the cubital fossa, it is bounded by the lateral border of pronator teres and laterally by medial border of brachioradialis muscle. Base, it is formed by an imaginary line joining both the epicondyles of the humerus. So base is formed by imaginary line joining the two epicondyles of the humerus. Apex is formed by meeting point of medial and lateral boundaries, that is crossing of brachioradialis over the pronator teres muscle. So this is the apex of the cubital fossa and this is the base of the cubital fossa. Roof is formed by skin, superficial fascia, then you have median cubital vein, which is a superficial vein, and medial cutaneous nerve of forearm and lateral cutaneous nerve of forearm. Whereas the floor, it is formed by the brachialis muscle and the supinator. Okay, so these are the boundaries of the cubital fossa: medially by lateral border of pronator teres, laterally by medial border of brachioradialis. Base is formed by joining the imaginary line joining the two epicondyles of the humerus, and apex is formed by the meeting point of the pronator teres and the brachioradialis muscle. Roof it is formed by skin, superficial fascia, median cubital vein, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm and lateral cutaneous nerve of forearm. Floor is formed by brachialis and the supinator muscle. Coming to the contents of the cubital fossa. The contents of the cubital fossa from medial to lateral side. First we have the median nerve, then we have brachial artery, then we have the biceps tendon, the tendon of the biceps brachii, and the radial nerve. So contents of the cubital fossa: from medial to lateral, the mnemonic is MBBR. M stands for median nerve, B stands for brachial artery, and again the B stands for biceps brachii tendon. Then the last one is the radial nerve. So radial nerve is the lateral most structure in the cubital fossa. So this is very, very important, because in practical examination also the examiner will ask you what are the structures or the contents in the cubital fossa from medial to lateral side. Okay, so some interesting facts about the cubital fossa. Number one, the median nerve. So median nerve, it gives of branches to the superficial flexor muscles of the forearm. What are those muscles? The flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, and flexor digitorum superficialis in the cubital fossa. Then branch to pointer teres muscle is given above the bend of the elbow, that is in the lower part of the arm. Median nerve, it is a medialmost structure in the cubital fossa, and it leaves the cubital fossa by passing between the two heads of the pointer teres muscle. So brachial artery terminates at the level of the neck of the radius by dividing into ulnar and the radial artery. Ulnar artery, it lies deep and gives common interosseous artery, which further divides into anterior and posterior interosseous arteries. So to visualize the branches of the brachial artery, you have to clean fat from the cubital fossa and do not mobilize the ulnar artery, as it is relatively fixed by interosseous arteries. So that you will be doing in the dissection hall, okay, at the time of dissection of the cubital fossa. Then the radial nerve, which is the lateralmost structure of the cubital fossa, is mostly covered by brachioradialis fibers. So to visualize the radial nerve, you have to retract the brachioradialis laterally and clean the fascia and fat on the lateral side of the tendon of the biceps. So radial nerve divides into two, the superficial branch and a deep branch. Deep branch is known as the posterior interosseous nerve. So superficial branch, it runs under cover of the brachioradialis muscle, whereas the deep branch gives branches to extensor carpi radialis brevis and supinator. Then it pierces the supinator to leave the cubital fossa. Okay, supinator is a muscle that will be discussed in the flexor compartment of the forearm. Okay, so these are the interesting facts about the median nerve, brachial artery, ulnar artery, and radial nerve. Okay, so here we can make out structures in the roof of the cubital fossa. We have the superficial veins. These are the cephalic vein, the basilic vein, right? And connecting these two veins, we have median cubital vein. Okay, then we have medial cutaneous nerve of forearm and the lateral cutaneous nerve of forearm. So this is the roof of the cubital fossa. So starting from the beginning, you will see the skin. After reflecting the skin, you will come across the superficial fascia and the deep fascia. In the superficial fascia, you will find the cephalic vein, basilic vein, and the median cubital vein. Then the bicipital aponeurosis, the medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, and the lateral cutaneous nerve of forearm. So these are the structures at the roof of the cubital fossa. The floor of the cubital fossa. The floor of the cubital fossa, it is formed by brachialis in the upper part and supinator in the lower part. Okay, so brachialis in the upper part and supinator in the lower part and the lateral part, because you can see the radius bone over here. So at the lower and lateral parts of the floor of the cubital fossa, you see the supinator muscle. At upper and medial part of the cubital fossa, you see floor of the cubital fossa, you see the brachialis muscle. Let us discuss about anastomosis around elbow. So first we will look at the anastomosis in front of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Okay, in front of the medial epicondyle of the humerus, the inferior ulnar collateral artery, anastomosis with the anterior ulnar recurrent branch of the ulnar artery. Okay. Then behind the medial epicondyle, the superior ulnar collateral artery, which is a branch from the brachial artery, anastomosis with the posterior ulnar recurrent branch of the ulnar artery. So this is the anastomosis in front of the medial epicondyle and behind the medial epicondyle. The next anastomosis at the lateral epicondyle, in front and in behind. So in front of the lateral epicondyle, the radial recurrent branch, that means this branch, anterior descending branch, or the radial collateral branch, which is a branch from the profunda brachiae artery, anastomosis with the radial recurrent branch of the radial artery. I repeat, in front of the lateral epicondyle, the radial collateral artery or the anterior descending branch of the profunda brachiae artery, anastomosis with the radial recurrent artery, which is a branch from the radial artery. Then behind the medial epicondyle, as you can see here, the posterior descending branch. This is the posterior descending branch, which is a branch from the profunda brachiae artery, anastomosis with the interosseous recurrent branch of posterior interosseous artery. That is, we intend it is a branch from the ulnar artery. Okay, so this is at the posterior aspect of the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Then above the olecranon process of the ulna, above the olecranon fossa, a transverse anastomosis between the middle collateral branch of the profunda brachiae, and a transverse branch from the posterior division of inferior ulnar collateral artery. As you can see here, a transverse branch from the posterior division of inferior ulnar collateral artery. So there is a transverse anastomosis at the olecranon fossa. Okay, so this is actually the anastomosis around the elbow joint or the elbow. You have to remember, anastomosis in front of the elbow, in front of the medial epicondyle, behind the medial epicondyle, and anastomosis in front of the lateral epicondyle and behind the lateral epicondyle, and anastomosis at the olecranon fossa of the humerus. Okay. Coming to the clinical correlation. So this median cubital vein is very, very important because it is useful for the venipuncture in the cubital fossa. Intravenous injections. Median cubital vein is often used for intravenous injections as it is fixed with the deep veins through perforating veins, so which are passing through the bicipital aponeurosis. Okay, so you can tie the tourniquet over here and you can withdraw blood from the median cubital vein, or you can give intravenous injections. Okay, so the steps for venipuncture: tighten the tourniquet, ask the patient to form the fist, palpate the median cubital vein in the cubital fossa, sterilize the area with alcohol or the spirit swab, insert the needle into the vein, collect the blood sample, then ask the patient to release the fist, then release the tourniquet. Place dry cotton over the venipuncture site, remove the needle slowly, apply mild pressure to the gauze until the bleeding stops. Then recording blood pressure. Brachial artery is auscultated in the cubital fossa for recording blood pressure. So those sounds are known as the Korokov sounds, we say, that you will learn in physiology. Brachial artery and median nerve are protected from external injuries by bicipital aponeurosis. Biceps jerk. For eliciting biceps jerk, the tendon of the biceps is stroked with tendon hammer in the cubital fossa. Sites of safety. In the cubital fossa, median nerve gives branches on the medial side, whereas the radial nerve gives branches on the lateral side. So obviously, because median nerve, it is the medialmost structure of the cubital fossa, whereas the radial nerve is the lateralmost structure of the cubital fossa. Hence, during surgeries of the cubital fossa, lateral to median and medial to lateral to median nerve and medial to radial nerve are sites of safety to avoid injuries to the branches of these nerves. Okay, So this you have to remember, that is the sites of safety of median and the radial nerve. So what you have to remember in this slide, that median cubital vein, why it is chosen for venipuncture. Okay, why an intravenous injections are given? Because it is fixed with the deep veins through the perforator veins. Okay, so it does not slip away when you insert the needle into the median cubital vein.